Let's talk about water damage. It's one of those things that can feel like a sneak attack, turning your home into a total hazard zone practically overnight. It happens fast, it spreads even faster, and here's the kicker. The real problem isn't the puddle you see on the floor. Nope. It's what's happening completely unseen, right underneath it. So today, we're going to pull back the curtain and show you exactly what happens when water strikes, and more importantly, map out the path from total crisis to full recovery. Okay, so here's how we're going to break it all down. First, we'll look at that moment of pure chaos. Then, we'll go behind the curtain, or, behind the walls, to uncover the dangers you can't see. After that, we'll walk through the professional's emergency playbook, dive into the fascinating science of drying, and finally, lay out your clear path to getting your home and your life back to normal. All right, so just imagine this for a second. You walk through your front door after a long day, and you hear it, that sound of rushing water. But wait, every single faucet is turned off. That's the exact moment a simple problem escalates into a full-blown crisis. And that's the moment of chaos we're talking about. It doesn't matter if it's a giant pipe burst or a slow leak you just now discovered. The clock is officially ticking. And in this race against time, believe me, every single minute counts. And the crazy part is, the source of the trouble is often something we use every single day without a second thought. We're talking about old pipes finally giving out, a simple washing machine hose deciding it's had enough, or even your AC unit getting clogged up. Any of these everyday things can turn into a major disaster with absolutely zero warning. And get this, if you happen to live in a humid place, say like Florida, the environment itself basically becomes your enemy. All that extra moisture in the air just turbocharges the damage, especially when it comes to mold growth. That idea of accelerated mold growth? Well, that's the perfect lead-in to our next big point. The puddles you see are really just the tip of the iceberg. The real, permanent damage is happening where you can't see it at all, deep inside the very structure of your house. And this right here really gets to the core of the issue. So, what you see is a wet carpet, but what's actually happening underneath is that the subfloor is starting to warp. You see a stain on the ceiling, but what's really going on is that the insulation inside is becoming the perfect breeding ground for mold. This invisible damage, that's the real enemy here. Remember this number, 48. 48 hours, that is your critical window, because in the right humid conditions, that's literally all it takes for mold to start setting up shop in your home. And we're not just talking about some ugly stain here. We're talking about a serious potential health hazard that can actually eat away at the structural integrity of your property. Now, here's something really important to understand. Not all water is created equal. The pros actually classify it into 3 different categories. Category 1 is clean water, like from a broken water supply line. Category 2 is gray water. Think an overflowing dishwasher, with soaps and food bits in it. But then you have Category 3, black water. This stuff is seriously contaminated, coming from sewage or floodwaters, and it's a major health risk that requires completely different safety protocols. So, knowing all of these dangers, how did the professionals actually respond? Well, they don't just react and start mopping. They execute a proven, systematic playbook that's designed to turn that absolute chaos into a totally controlled process. This quote right here, it honestly says it all. Getting experts to your house within that first hour can genuinely be the deciding factor between a manageable cleanup and a catastrophic, full-scale tear-out and reconstruction. Speed is absolutely everything. So this whole process, it always unfolds in 3 critical phases. It kicks off with immediate water removal to stop the damage in its tracks. Then comes the most important part, structural drying, which is all about pulling moisture out from deep within your home's materials. And only after that is done right can the final restoration and rebuilding actually begin. So how can you be sure you're hiring a real expert and not just some guy with a fan? You look for this, IICRC certification. Seriously, this isn't just a fancy logo. It's your guarantee that the technicians actually understand the science of how water moves through building materials. And that knowledge is the key to preventing all that hidden mold and rot we were just talking about. And that brings us to a really critical and honestly often misunderstood part of the process. Properly drying a structure isn't about just setting up a few fans you bought at the hardware store and crossing your fingers. It is a science. Professionals use a scientific principle called psychrometry. It sounds complex, but basically they manipulate the temperature, the airflow, and the humidity to create this powerful drying vortex right inside your home. It literally pulls trapped moisture out of everything: drywall, wood, even concrete. And look, this is a meticulous process that just can't be rushed. A typical job takes about 3 to 5 days. And it's not a set-it-and-forget-it deal. Oh no. Technicians come back every single day using these specialized meters to track moisture levels inside your walls and floors, and they're constantly adjusting the equipment to make sure the drying is as efficient as possible. This table just makes the stakes crystal clear. A DIY approach, with a shop vac and some fans, it might make things look dry on the surface, but it leaves behind all that trapped moisture, which is just a recipe for mold and rot down the line. The professional, scientific approach is the only way to truly eliminate that hidden risk and make sure the job is done right all the way through. And that brings us to the final phase, getting your property and your life back to normal. Once the structure is verifiably, scientifically dry, that's when the real restoration can finally begin. A top-tier restoration company is going to make this final phase totally transparent. They'll give you daily updates, they'll use cool tools like thermal cameras to literally show you there's no hidden moisture left, and they'll work directly with your insurance carrier to make the claim process way less of a headache. The whole thing is driven by data, and it is not finished until the final tests say you're good to go. And hey, here's a little bit of good news. Most standard insurance policies will cover damage that is sudden and accidental. Like a burst pipe or a washing machine that goes haywire. This is exactly why getting immediate, professional documentation of everything is so incredibly important for your claim. This right here, this is the mindset of a true professional. It's not about just looking dry. It's about being scientifically proven to be dry. This commitment to a documented standard is what really protects your property and your investment in the long run. So we'll leave you with this one question. After a water event, dry just isn't enough. The real question you need to ask is it safe? Is it safe from the unseen threats of mold and structural damage? And achieving that level of safety, well, that comes down to science, speed, and real expertise.